How the is it that I work out in sites like this? Blue collar work, right? We building like this. Bottle cans, pipe, backflows, concrete, all this blue collar work, you know what I'm saying? How the is it that I work in this? And I'm a heavy equipment operator, so that is what I operate, that is another one. But yet, I'm still struggling to live in America. I'm building like this.
Corporate greed.
Right now I'm in Kissimmee, Florida, but I'm building like this. Like this, dealing with like this. Digging down on meters and raising the boxes to curb level and everything. How is it that I'm doing heavy labor jobs, because that's what they say. This is what the old generation says. You got to work hard. You got to get you a good job. This is what they say. Work hard, get you a good job, or pick up a good trade. How is it that I work in something like this and got 6 years of experience in this, make a significant good amount of money when it comes to gross pay, but yet I'm still struggling? And I'm living below my means. I don't have Netflix. I don't have any of that right? Just enough to pay the rent, just enough to pay my insurance on my car. Barely can get food. Food stamp says I make way too much. You know what I'm saying? How is it that I live in America working heavy labor, blue collar jobs like this, 6 years of experience, and yet I can't live in America?
Welcome to America, baby. Welcome to America. You have the same story everybody else got right now, man. Things are so expensive. People are losing cars, losing homes, losing jobs. Credit card debt is through the roof. Income not. Interest payments is through the roof. Welcome to America, man. Who knows what's the end game in all this? Maybe they're trying to see how much people can take. Or maybe the billionaires, like my man, what my man named Peter, he leaving, going to Argentina. He said he's leaving America. So a lot of these people know what's coming and they're dipping. So look it up. Listen, it is what it is.
The gas tax is ending. We just got confirmation from Governor Brian Kemp's office. The governor will not be extending the gas tax suspension for a third time. That means tomorrow, Tuesday night, 11:59, that gas tax suspension ends. How does that impact you? Well, every time you go to fill up your gas tank, it will be at least 33 cents more per gallon. That suspension has been in place 2 consecutive times, but again, the governor confirming just a few minutes ago there will not be a third extension. So the gas price in Georgia as of Tuesday night, basically at midnight, will go up 33 cents a gallon.
All right, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I want to give all praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem Rekakwadash, giving double honors to the apostles and elders of Great Millstone. Shalom to the hopefully elect. Shalom to all the brothers out here laboring in this truth with sincerity. Shalom to the few sisters that watch. It's coming back with another lesson. As we can see, things are tightening up, certain reliefs or tax cuts, tax breaks or whatever are being taken away, so it's only going to get worse out here in Babylon the Great, man. And it's all agenda of this devil, man. So, I saw something where, certain people are getting raises. They're raising the minimum wage. But the thing about it is everything else around you is going up, at a rate that's, so fast to whatever raise you get. First of all, you're already behind on your wages anyway. You're probably $5-6 behind, from what you should have been anyway. So, it's all a plotting scheme by this devil, man, to, collapse the economy, bring people further into poverty, and that's where we're headed. But the thing about it is you people don't want to listen. And when I say that, I'm talking about you so-called blacks, Latinos, and Native Americans. You Israelites, you don't want to listen, man. The Lord is putting the word out, telling you what's to come. you know, through the prophets, and you still disregard. And like I say, it's only going to get worse, man. There's no turning back. There's no turning back. Babylon the Great is finished. It's on the downhill slide, you know. Like I think it was Samuel L. Jackson on Juice or somebody say you slid down a razor blade into a bathtub full of alcohol or something like that. You know, that's Babylon the Great, man. It's over with. So, you know, we're going to make it quick, hit the points. You know, as you saw the videos in the beginning, you know, you got a heavy equipment operator, man. Barely able to survive. You know, at one point in time, you know, that was a flourishing job. You know, making at least probably minimum $45 an hour, you know, $30, $45 an hour. You know, and that was a great job to have. So now, you know, even in that industry, man, all the industries like that, you know, where, you know, Edomites have had, you know, kept to themselves and, you know, squeeze Jake out the way, you know, lock Jake out. Now, you know, it's not even a glorified job anymore, you know. So everybody is feeling it. This man don't even care about his own people. When I say that, I mean the Edomites. So, you know, for us, it's definitely going to get bad. That's why we got to come back to Yahweh Shem Yahushua, man. So let me stop rambling and grab some scriptures, man. It's, you know, that's what we're here for. You know, to read these scriptures, prepare ourselves, you know, first and foremost, spiritually, you know, mentally, physically, to be able to endure the times to come. That's why we here, you know, and bring you back to your power, man. Yahweh Shem Yahushua, you know, or you know, introduce you back to your power, you know, but it's all through the spirit and power of Yahweh Shem Yahushua in the first place. But, you know, you have to know who to call on in the times to come. So this is the book of Romans chapter 10, verse 21. I'm just going to get to the point. It says, but to Israel he said, all day long I have stretched forth my hands unto a disobedient and gainsaying people. So let's go into this word gainsaying. We know what, you know, being disobedient, we know what that means. So gainsaying, to speak against, gainsay, contradict, and we see the unbelief on the internet. You know, the Edelmanat Zakbar puts up videos all the time of these people coming up against the truth, man. You know, whether they're calling Jesus, you know, or even Yahweh Shai, you know, whoever they're calling on, you know, we know what they mean. They may not know the name, but they know the intent the same way the Lord does. He know your intent. He know, you know, maybe you're not calling his name in particular, but he knows what your intentions are. And your intentions are to speak against. It says to oppose oneself to one, decline to obey him, declare oneself against him, refuse to have anything to do with him. Yeah. You people have nothing to do with the Lord. You don't want anything to do with the Lord, man. It's just unreal, the unbelief that these people have, and they don't mind professing it. You know, at one point in time, you know, we all were trying to find our way, but I don't think we just didn't believe in the Lord. We just had a distorted view of who the Lord was, you know, and what he stood for, you know. But we always believed it was a, you know, higher power. But, you know, hey, man, we here now. The water, Yahweh Shem Yahushua, you know, for bringing us into the fold, man. Lord willing, we can endure and make it to the end, you know. But we see times are getting harder, faster. You know, it's already June. And so, you know, we here in Georgia, you know, they just cut the gas tax relief. So gas is about to jump, you know, 30, 35 cents overnight. You know, and we know it's going to continue to go up. So we don't know what the price may get to. But, you know, hey, man, it's a strain on everybody. You know, it's a strain on everybody. You know, this devil cutting hours, cutting overtime, you know, cutting jobs. But, you know, we got to do what we got to do, man. We Israelites. So we know what to do. First of all, we got the Lord on our side. So this is the book of Zechariah chapter 7. So we're going to drop to verse 11. Just going to get to the point. It says, but they refused to hearken and pulled away the shoulder and stopped their ears that they should not hear. You know, speaking of you disobedient, gainsaying Israelites. You hear this word. We had a disobedient, gainsaying Israelite to come up to the camp last weekend. You know, spoke about it before. But this is a prime example of the mentality of these people when it comes to the Lord. You know, they want to be able to save everybody. You know, they're more concerned about other nations than the people of their own nation, man. You know, this devil has put it in their heads to hate the people of their own and love them, man. That's a Stockholm syndrome, you know. So verse 12, it says, yeah, they made their hearts as an adamant stone. And that's just like a super hard stone. It says, lest they should hear the law and the words which the Lord Yahweh of hosts has sent in the spirit by the former prophets. You know, because we know the spirit of the prophets are subject to the prophets. So the prophets of old are the prophets of today, you know, and the Lord is doing the same thing, man. Bringing forth his word through the man teaching it. Prophets out on the highways and hedges. But it says, lest they should hear the law and the words which the Lord Yahweh of hosts has sent. So, you know, when you go into stuff like that, just like that guy, that Christian bug out came up, he kept saying, that's the Old Testament. That's the Old Testament. But you can't separate the two. You can't have one without the other. If you believe in Yahushua, which they say Jesus, he quoted from the Old Testament. He's spoken about in the Old Testament. But that just goes to show you that the knowledge that these people have is very limited. You know, like I said, they got a skewed view of the scriptures. So it says, therefore came a great wrath from the Lord Yahweh of hosts. And that's what's coming, you know. Jacob's trouble, first and foremost, before the destruction. So it's going to be a whole lot of heartache and pain going on before this place is destroyed. People are going to be suffering. People are already suffering, man. You know, you got restaurants, there's small businesses, there's closing, you know, that's been around for 20, 30 years, closing the doors, shutting the doors, you know, like gas prices, man. If you work, depending on what kind of job you have, you know, if you're in the construction industry, you're not in one place at all times, man. You're driving far, far away. And if you're driving your personal car and you got to spend this gas, you got to look at it and say, man, is this worth it? What am I doing? I'm losing money. So this is where we are. This is where we are. This is where this man wants this country to be. You know, and President Trump even said it. He ain't worried about the country's finances. He ain't worried about the people's finances. He only worried about Iran having a nuclear weapon. Slap in the face, man. You know, are these people really that much of a threat? Of course not. Of course not. So we're going to continue on. Salakia, go to the book of Proverbs. You know, we bring this out all the time. And this is so true, man. Right now, this is happening. Right, this is the mindset of the people when it comes to these scriptures. You know, these scriptures are faithful and true. You know, you cannot go against them, and if you do, you end up like Deacon Hakar and Hassad. You know, out there in utter darkness, in the abyss, floating around, looking for a rope to grab to come back. But the Lord ain't throwing you no rope. He ain't throwing you no lifeline, man. What you call that thing? What you call that thing? Lifesaver or whatever. He ain't throwing you that, man. You're drifting out. You're gone. So we'll just jump to verse 24. This is the book of Proverbs, chapter 1, verse 24. It says, because I have called and ye refuse, I have stretched out my hand and no man regarded. You know, you're not regarding it because of where the message is coming from, first and foremost, and how the message is being brought forth. You know, this is why. You know, you're overly sensitive, and you hate the people that look like you, man. Verse 25, it says, but ye have set at naught all my counsel, and would none of my reproof. I will also laugh at your calamity, and I will mock you when your fear cometh. So the Lord is going to bring terror upon the people, his people. And he going to laugh at his own people. Because when the word was brought forth, you didn't listen. You didn't hearken unto the word. So verse 27, it says, when your fear cometh as desolation, and your destruction cometh as a whirlwind, when distress and anguish cometh upon you, then shall they call upon me, but I will not answer. They shall seek me early, but they shall not find me. Why? Because that's how much terror and destruction and famines and plagues and death and killings and all this that the Lord is going to bring upon this place, man, like never before. So they're going to be looking for answers. They're going to be looking for the Lord. But the Lord say he ain't going to answer, man. So now it's time. You know, you see where we're headed. You see where the country is headed. You see where the world is headed. You see where the economy is headed. You know, so now it's time to come back to the Lord. Where we at? Verse 29, it says, for that they hated knowledge and did not choose to fear the Lord Yahweh. You know, these people hate knowledge. They hate the knowledge that's being brought forth. You know, starting with our apostles and elders, man. You know, definitely got to get double honors for the labor. You know that they've been dealing with these knuckleheads for 40 years, man. Over 40 years. So, you know, who would know more than them? You know, they seen it all. So, verse 30, it says, they would none of my counsel, they despise all my reproof. So ultimately, man, you people you're done for. You know, if you don't get with Yahweh Hashem Yahushua ASAP, hey man, destruction coming. You know, famine, all types of plagues. You know, it's all coming, man. Don't look at what's going on the outer surface. You know, it might look good. You know, Atlanta about to get the World Cup. Oh man, that's beautiful. Oh, we cleaning up the city. Oh, this and that. But behind the scenes, man, you have to understand what's coming your way. You know, NBA finals. Oh, it's all beautiful. But you got to understand what's going on, man. You first and foremost, you got to understand what the Lord is about to bring. You know, Esau put this stuff out here as a covering, as a blindfold. But, hey, you can't blindfold the true men of the Lord, man. You know, you can't deceive the true men of the Lord. So, you know, with that being said, you know, Lord willing is edifying. We want to constantly give our praises, honor, and glory to Yahweh, Bahashem, Yahweh Shai, Bahashem, Rakakwadash. Shalom.